Okay, let's get started, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, so let me just bring the meeting to order. Let's do a pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we could do a moment of silence for Erica Tomaselli. She passed away at a very young age. She was a teacher at the Rombaut Middle School, a coach, and the in-law of one of our former employees. So just let's give it a minute. Thank you. All right, let's do a roll call. I see everyone here. Anyone not here? Okay, I see the city administrator. Who's on line for the city?
Good evening, Mayor. Nicholas Ward Willis with Keenan Bean, City Attorney for Beacon.
Okay, thank you. I'm informed that there is an arraignment at 8 o'clock, so this is officially a courtroom. So we may get kicked out of here at 8. I don't know yet. We're looking to see if the court would be willing to do it somewhere else. So don't mind me if I try to move this along a little bit. I'll do it mostly by talking quickly and keeping my comments to a minimum. Okay, so let's do our first opportunity for public comment. Anyone on the list, I'll call up first. You get 3 minutes on any topic. The first opportunity for public comment under our rules is limited to 30 minutes. I'm going to try to do that. My only encouragement to people who speak is if you've heard someone say the same things before, that would be great to say, I agree with the comments and go on. So I'm going to try to move us along. So thank you. The first person is Kamel Jamal. Welcome.
Hello. How you doing? First, I'd like to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak freely here before you. Being born in a refugee camp, I wasn't born with the freedom to speak or say what's on my mind or express who I am. I was born in a refugee camp outside of Palestine in a village called Zedka, and in a kitchen. 50 years later, I'm still in the kitchen. Hopefully, I don't have to be in the kitchen and die there. But I'm not going to talk about the kitchen right now. I'm going to talk about Beacon and how I found Beacon, or how Beacon found me. 24 years ago, my wife and I stumbled upon Beacon when we were looking to get married in the eyes of God and the state. And the mosque here offered that. And at that moment, we knew the diversity the city of Beacon had, and we knew that we could make the city of Beacon our home. Fast forward a few years later, as we were raising our kids, we had the opportunity to come back into Beacon and establish business. We opened up 5 different businesses in Beacon, all of which were boarded up. We've employed over 1,000 people in the city of Beacon. Local and outsiders came along and worked for us. And through our journey, we've welcomed numerous amounts of visitors alike to grow with us in Beacon. My point is, wherever I went, I thought about the footprint that I could leave the community and the flag I could wave as a human. And, excuse me for my emotions, as you know, we are suffering greatly. And there isn't enough tears that can justify how I feel today as I felt before all this that we are witnessing. I've been threatened. I've been jumped in the city of Beacon. I've been dehumanized in the city of Beacon since this happened. I've turned to our police department for help, and they've been amazing. As my company growed, I turned to our mayors, past and current mayors. I turned to the city administrator for assistance in helping me keep the community growing. I was there when we turned the city into a sanctuary city. I marched with Black Lives Matter. I marched with the LGBTQ. I've also was there when they put a bench out front with a blue stripe, because I believe everybody has the right to stand up for what they believe. And
15 seconds left.
in my time, I think you all know what kind of person I am, what kind of people we are, and the footprint we leave behind is that of a positive footprint for our community. And I thank you for your time. And I ask you to consider a ceasefire resolution in the city of Beacon, as we are the beacon of the Hudson Valley, and we can be the beacon of the state of New York. I need your help, and I hope that you see what I see. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Audience, our rules ask you to refrain from things like that. It just makes it harder for everyone to communicate. So it also would help us to move forward if we just held that back. Arthur Kamens?
Good evening, everybody. Arthur Kamens, Rombard Avenue. As a Beacon resident committed to democracy, human rights, and respect for all, a Jew, and a registered Democrat, I need to convey to all of you, my local elected representatives, that I find the silence thus far about the attempt by a city employee to shut down legitimate, peaceful dissent about U.S. support for Israel's attack on innocent civilians deafening. The silence conveys to me, and many folks I've talked to in Beacon, especially Palestinians who have lost people in the attacks, and those who just care, what I hear is acceptance and ambivalence. That's not what a safe and welcoming city does. It also conveys tolerance of suppression of dissent. That's not what I voted for Democrats in Beacon. So for folks in Beacon, this is a decidedly, as Kamal indicated, a local issue that demands your attention. It does raise the question, what kind of city am I living in? I'm still waiting for an apology from the mayor on behalf of the city. I appreciate his expression of his family's fears. However, in response to strong critique of the suppression of dissent, the mayor's conflation of violent attacks on personal public officials with his family's perception of danger from peaceful COVID-masked protesters to be egregious. The "I'm all for free speech" claim rang hollow. In a democracy, public officials need to accept peaceful confrontation. To quote Martin Luther King, I am sorry to say it fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. In a letter from Birmingham jail, he went on to excoriate, quote, right moderates, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, unquote. Many cities, as you know, around the country have taken a stand to call for a ceasefire, an end to U.S. military aid to Israel, and have denounced anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I urge each city council member to join
15 seconds.
other cities in passing such a resolution and moving it into the agenda with all due speed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just remind the audience again, it helps us all if you just hold it. Vikas Ashoka.
Two weeks ago, my mayor compared nonviolent protesters to political murderers because of the masks and winter jackets that they wore. The Highlands Courant, in turn, chose to quote him without reaching out to demonstrators for their side. So I'm here today to share with you all that I was one of those protesters. So you can look at me in the eyes and determine to what extent I compromise your safety. My name is Vikas Ashoka. I live in Ward 2, but you know that because I've spoken from this podium a dozen times. And in every meeting, I wear a KN95 mask to protect the medically vulnerable around me. And in the winter, yes, I do tend to wear a winter jacket. At the swearing-in ceremony, I had both on. And I was also carrying my baby as I am doing now, a detail the mayor chose not to include when fear-mongering about my attire on January 6th. Parenting a newborn is the primary reason why I've been advocating for an end to U.S. support for Israel's genocide in Gaza. In late October, after Israel had indiscriminately bombed 3,000 children, I led a peaceful protest outside of Congressman Pat Ryan's office. A few weeks later, after over 4,600 children had been killed, I met with his staff, and when the death toll was 8,000, my organization hosted a letter-writing event for the community. None of these polite requests worked. And so in early January, after nearly 10,000 children were killed in Gaza, a group of us attempted to hold what was planned to be a silent demonstration. In his comments 2 weeks ago, the mayor chose to focus on safety. In doing so, he compared us with literal murderers, a type of rhetoric that endangers us, his own constituents. But his attempt to blur the lines between nonviolent resistance and violent repression was telling, because it's so similar to Israel's multi-decade demonization of Palestinian people and the recent genocide of over 100,000 people who have been killed or injured. The mayor has also encouraged a local business owner to call the police if they saw us, another parallel to an Israeli occupation that is heavily policed Palestinians trying to live normal lives. The mayor offers us a fearful and false security, unlike the courage that I've seen modeled by this movement for Palestinian liberation. It was not Beacon's militarized police who protected us demonstrators at your event. It was the onlookers in the audience, like those behind me, who documented the interaction. It was our friends in this diverse movement who checked in on us after the fact, not a single one of you, or anyone who represented the city. As of today, on the topic of a ceasefire in occupied Palestine, the city of Beacon is in the local paper for only 2 actions. 1, the
15 seconds.
repression of a nonviolent protest, and 2, the mayor's defense of it. I ask you, does that reflect your stance, city council members? If not, now is the time to stand for your values. Pass a resolution to support a ceasefire, and do so with urgency. Anything less will be read by your community as an implicit support of continued violence at home and abroad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Please. So if it continues, I'll just close off the public comments. So I'm asking the audience to be respectful and follow our rules. I'm very, very interested to hear everyone's remarks, but you need to actually allow people to make their remarks without commentary, and that's in our rules. So I'll ask you again. Isaiah? Do I have the right name? Is it Uno? I can't read the 3 letters. Uro? What's the first name? Isaiah? Isaac? Isran? Someone whose last name is Uro. There's 2 in a row with that last name. Take your pick. Come on up if you want to speak. If you do. You don't have to, but if you do. And then just tell us your name and where you live. Thank you.
Ahmed Euro, 8 Sabra Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know where to start. I won't repeat what other people said. 14,000 dead babies, dead children. I mean, the people here who are asking for a ceasefire resolution, they're begging for one. It's the same as when the crowd was asking Derek Chauvin, please get your knee off his neck. They're just asking for violence to end. I know that the city of Beacon, the city of Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Wappingers, Pat Ryan himself, can't bring an end to the ceasefire, but at least you can help shout along with us. So, please, it's not going to cost us anything. It's free. It's ending violence. There's a faucet of blood, and we can't turn it. We need more people to help us turn off the blood. It's an easy decision to make. I know politicians usually make their minds up before they even hear what people have to say. But it's not a hard decision. It's ending violence. Please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Another one with the same last name if you wish to speak. Okay, so she's waved that off. Tony? Is it make or milk? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tony Meck, Washington Ave. And I'm also here to speak in favor of the Beacon City Council adding a ceasefire resolution to the agenda. At the January 22nd City Council meeting, several council members mentioned the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade and affirmed their commitment to reproductive rights. I appreciate this sentiment, and I also want to encourage this council to broaden their lens to include the systemic gendered violence currently occurring in Gaza as well. The international humanitarian agency CARE reported in January that there has been a 300% increase in the miscarriage rate in Gaza since Israel's escalation of attacks in October 2023. The Palestinian Family Planning and Protection Association reports that there is currently no safe place to give birth in Gaza, and C-sections are currently being performed without anesthesia. Pre- and postnatal care are also non-existent. If you think that this sounds horrific, but that it's not a local issue, I beg you to reconsider. I know that being pro-choice is a central tenet of the local Democratic Party. However, to bemoan the Dobbs decision here in the U.S. while staying silent about a genocide which the United Nations estimates kills 2 mothers in Gaza every hour does not add up. A commitment to reproductive justice must extend past mourning the loss of abortion rights in the U.S. I hope that when you tell the story of when you held public office in the post-Dobbs period, you are able to say that you did everything in your power to fight the tide of gendered violence, not only for our immediate neighbors, but for those in Gaza as well. Our neighbors in Newburgh and Albany have passed ceasefire resolutions, and I know that Beacon can do it too. I hope that the City Council hears the call of the community and quickly moves to add a ceasefire resolution to the agenda and pass it. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Chiara DiLello?
Hi everyone, I'm Chiara DiLello, Ward 2. Nothing's the same for me since Israel's genocide in Gaza in October. I'm a substitute teacher. I was at a small school today with second graders, and it's a relatively small school, about 100 students. That's the number of children or casualties generally in 24 hours in Gaza. And 10,000 children over 120 days, that's about that entire school every single day, murdered by Israel. The scale of the violence is practically incomprehensible. Every time the students leave the room to go to lunch or go see another teacher, I sit down in a chair and stare at the wall. Writing is another thing that I do. I write poems, and writing is also not the same for me since all of this began. On December 7th, a poet, Rifat Al-Arir, was targeted in a publicized Israeli airstrike and killed. And so I echo every public comment that's already been made. I will not bore you with repetitions, and I will also read you a short poem that I hope you have heard before, but if not, I will be glad to introduce it to you. It's called If I Must Die by Rifat Al-Arir. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale. And so on behalf of Rifat Al-Arir and the 30,000 casualties in Gaza, I ask you to please put a ceasefire resolution on the agenda and show Beacon that show the world, show the district that we stand with Gaza and we stand with Palestine, with children, with poets, and with everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Spiro?
Hi, Lauren Spiro, 4th Ward. I'm here. I'm also Jewish. I'm here to voice my support for the Beacon City Council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and Palestine. As a Jew, I want to express that calling for a ceasefire is not anti-Semitic in any way. The conflation of Jewish people in the U.S. and in Israel with the actions of the Israeli government is not correct. Israel is indiscriminately killing civilians and bombing hospitals and universities, and these are criminal acts. I ask that the Beacon City Council represent us by calling for an end to this and by passing a ceasefire resolution, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it Jesse, R-O-G-U-N?
Good evening. Jesse Reagan, Ward 2. My heart is breaking for Palestinians, both in Palestine and here in Beacon. I feel helpless. I want to make my voice heard. I want to do what I can. I and many of the people in the community here have been writing letters to our elected officials. We've been calling for a ceasefire in protests. We've been writing emails. Some of us have been in meetings with officials, but the message doesn't seem to be getting through. The Senate has a bill for $17 billion of additional aid to Israel right now to continue this, what I believe is a genocide, to continue this horrific act. So our voices are not being heard, and I'm asking you to stand up for us, to make our voices heard all the way up through our government, make a clear statement, pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire and an end of military aid to Israel. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Ashley, R-E-C-K, Rekas? Is that right?
Hi, Rabbi Brent Spodek.
Hang on.
Can I take Ashley's spot?
Oh, if you hang on just a minute, you can have your own spot. Thank you. Is there a Jacob? Ashley, you don't want to speak? Okay. You can always come back, all right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Rekas, Ward 2. Nice to see you all. I appreciate and hear that there's quite a lot of comment on asking for a public resolution, and I recognize that it sounds like there's a barrage of support in one direction, and I learned about this just before the event, and so wanted to come and speak, that I understand that there was a movement to ask people to come and speak tonight on one side of this, and I just want to acknowledge that there was not very much knowledge for anybody who might think differently. And so you may hear a consistent message, as we've been hearing, but there may not be as many people who know to come tonight to speak, to maybe add some more nuance. So I'd like to add some nuance from my perspective. I am here in peace and for peace. I'm here to ask that the City Council not go down the very slippery slope of trying to get into a very complicated foreign policy. I say this in support of peace. People have made mention that calling for a ceasefire is not anti-Semitic. Of course not, absolutely not. There's a question of what does a ceasefire mean that gets a little bit more complicated. So I very much want a ceasefire. I am desperately seeking for peace. I have been living in Beacon for a few years. I've been a part of Palestinian-Israeli peace initiatives here and over in Israel. I know peace has a chance if both sides can hold themselves accountable. There's been no mention of what happened on October 7th tonight. It's a very complicated situation. There's been no mention of the 1-year-old child who was taken hostage and is underground. There's been no mention of the fact that the underground system, which there was mention that America's sending money over to Israel. America also sent money over that was being used by the Palestinian leadership. I'm not saying all Palestinians. I actually believe that the Palestinian people has, I hope and believe, a desire for unity and peace, and that's what I'm here for. But the underground system is 1.5 times longer than the London Underground. How did that money, where did that money come from? To suddenly say, hey, we should just have a ceasefire and not look back is complicated. And I understand that people might say, oh, but how far are you going to look back? Complicated. I'm just suggesting that this is a very complicated situation. And to simply come and say, hey, we want to look at it from today, I am absolutely for peace, and I want to reiterate it. And I think that we have brothers and sisters in our community that I have expressed and reached out to and would like, and I'm getting mocked with looks right now, but
15 seconds.
I appreciate that. I'm here in peace. I believe that there is an opportunity for the citizens of Beacon who have the freedom and ability to actually sit and talk to each other, which is something that people right now in Israel and Gaza cannot do. That's what we should be doing. We should be coming together. We should be working together. And I'm just nervous about what a generic resolution might say. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. That's everyone who's on the list. If somebody would like to speak who's not on the list, this would be your opportunity. And I will call the gentleman who came up earlier in a minute, but please go ahead. No, go ahead. You're on.
Clark Edmund, 2 Wilson Street. I grew up on the Syracuse University campus. Of my paper route there was fraternities in the late 60s, and so I understand the meaning of civil disobedience. So in an act of civil disobedience, because they're ignoring you, I'm going to turn the podium so I can see you. Now, the whole idea here is that in order to have justice in the city of Beacon, you need to have an administration that is accountable to us. 30 requests denied by the city manager for records. The allegation 4 council meetings ago that they haven't published the audit in several years has been unanswered by the city council. We have not had competition for our city government. If you desire change, then the only change you can get the quickest is to put a wanted poster on your front lawn of each council person looking for justice. Because the reality is, this is a small community. It has potential to be everything Norman Rockwell's paintings presented as an aspirational, shared democracy. But when the council reduces discussion from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, or give credence to the late comment session to the court for an arraignment that can happen anywhere in this building, it is really just roadblocks to voice. The city is vulnerable because it's a city. And if in the next 30 days or so, a petition is gathered to go ahead and change the style of governance of the city, I would advocate a strong mayor, elected council members, properly paid. That means they aspire to keep their jobs rather than ignore the voice of the people. It has become a developer city, and I have land. I bought it after 9/11. I want to develop. But the reality is shared participation in terms of how the community grows creates affordability, and also affordability for the old people who are here that are being taxed out because of the policies of the administration for the last 10 years or more. So I say to you, if there is not change, come at the next council meeting, select some speaker, not me.
15 seconds.
Give them $20 apiece and start printing posters and collecting signatures to change the government. I guarantee you they will listen.
Thank you. I just want to read a section of the rules. Speakers shall address all members of the council and shall avoid speaking to any one member directly or to the general public present at the meeting. I just want to point that out. It's not a section I've read before. The gentleman who came up earlier, if you'd like to come speak, this would be the time.
Rabbi Brent Spodek, Beacon Hebrew Alliance. I know, I think many of the folks in the room. I've struggled with the dynamics around Israel and Palestine and the violence perpetrated there for most of my career, mostly over there. And in any situation of conflict, one of the easiest things to do is shout and use force to silence the other voice. In many ways, that's what's happening, and that's what's been happening in Israel and Palestine for a long time. Hamas attacks, Israel attacks, and back and forth and back and forth. And obviously, this goes on forever with fabulous results for everyone involved. And I stand here knowing that I have friends and colleagues who've been protesting out on the streets against the abominable Israeli government for months. The Israeli government doesn't care, right? Thousands of Israelis for months have been protesting the government. They don't care. With all due respect to the Beacon City Council, anything we pass, one way or the other, will have no impact on anything actually going on over there. Bibi Netanyahu doesn't care what his people say, he doesn't care what the American president says, and I don't think he cares what the Beacon City Council says. I think that here in Beacon, at least in the 15 years I've been here, in many fraught moments, we've had a different way of dealing with conflict. We've been able to have dialogue and conversation. We can here replicate the dysfunctional dynamics of grabbing for force, in this case, the force of the City Council of Beacon to issue a proclamation, which is obviously not the force of guns and bombs, but a different type of force. And perhaps some voices will claim this force for their side or others for their side. But I'd like to suggest that for us, for the members of the City Council, and really for the members of the community here, many of whom I know, a fair number of you have messages for me on your voicemail, that we can have a different path here, and we can have an opportunity for conversation and dialogue. My phone number is 845-831-2012, and I want to very sincerely issue an invitation. I'm not Israeli. I've spent a lot of time in Israel and a lot of time in Palestine. And I want to very sincerely say that if there's anybody here on the council or here in the room who wants to talk,
15 seconds.
who wants to be in relationship, as I have been with many people in this room for a long time, I welcome that. I would hope that we don't simply replicate the efforts to grasp for force, to use what force we can gain to make our voices louder and the voices of our so-called opponents quieter. Thank you.
Thank you. We're at the half-hour mark. Can I get a show of hands of anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, I only see one. Why don't we take the one, Carissa? There'll be a second opportunity for public comments at the tail end of the meeting. This is a very short meeting in terms of our agenda.
Sorry I'm late. The city's been down this road before. This is a waste of time and city staff resources and taxpayer resources. We cannot save the world from this death with our money that should be going towards our city. I see the buses come to town. The city finances are in the balance. We need to put our resources into our 5 square miles. Paying the city lawyers to draft these resolutions that have no sway in world politics is just throwing money out the window. We are on the brink of losing our single bus transportation going down Main Street and into further parts of Beacon for our residents, and the potential for losing many more parking spaces. And the Spirit of Beacon Day local committee is now reaching out further beyond our 5 miles. The corner in protest is Poe Hill Park, dedicated to Robert Poe Hill, who was held hostage during the Iranian conflict in the 80s. We need to really honor why that park is there. And I see the bus has come to town, and let's focus on Beacon. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You have one online.
Oh, all right. I'm told there's one comment online. Let's take that one. Ben, if you can help
All
us
right,
out.
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give the normal spiel, though, just in case anyone else who's attending online understands the procedure. If you're joining us on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, you'll need to use the raise hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're joining us by phone, you'll need to press *9. And if you're tuning in by YouTube, you'll need to join us on the Beacon Zoom link, which can be found on our calendar on the website. Right now, we have one hand raised, and that is Justice McCrae. Justice, your hand is, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, yes. I'm going to keep it quick. I want to support, call in support for the Beacon City Council to write a resolution in support of a ceasefire. I appreciate many of the comments that were said tonight, and I recognize that the city's focus is on what the city can do for the residents here in Beacon, but we do have a lot of people that are hurting in the city and a lot of people that have come out tonight to express their voice and their needs. And I know that there isn't a lot that this council can do, but we can say that we are a city that wants to be safe and welcoming. We are a city that wants to make sure that everybody feels welcome and that we don't want to see a genocide happening, and we can pass that on to the higher ups and say that this is a city that isn't standing for that. And so I just want to encourage the council to listen to the many voices that have come out tonight and write a resolution to in support of a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. I hear there's one more hand raised online, so let's just do that one.
Yes, that's James Case Leal. James, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, yes, my name is James Case Leal, Ward 2. I really appreciate all the people who have spoken tonight. I really also appreciated Mayor Kyriakou recentering the conversation around safety. And in the January 22nd meeting, he talked about, and this is going to be not an exact quote, but you believe that individuals' First Amendment rights towards assembly and free speech ends when it interferes with other people's fears for their safety. And that phrasing, "I feared for my safety," really resonated with me, as it probably should for all of us, because we've heard it so many times, oftentimes used as a rationalization for self-defense or preemptive self-defense. I feared for my safety. And too often we hear that phrasing come out of the people who are actually the safest. And in these cases that I heard you bringing these up, Mayor Kyriakou, I think that you were absolutely protected and surrounded by safety. In terms of a legal defense, there are two criteria that I think are really important to consider when thinking about fearing for your safety being a justification, and that's, is it a reasonable fear, and did you have other options? I think it's important to think about this and real fears of what it must be like to be a Palestinian father who has a reasonable fear for their child's safety and no option to take them to some place where they will not be afraid, right? I think that we need to consider how free speech factors into this, because we live in an era of strongmen proto-fascists like Netanyahu. And I hate to imagine it, but a year from now, we may have a Trump president. So knowing how Beacon is going to respond to supporting our protesters is very, very important. Also very important to contextualize that one of the reasons why protesters are protesting Congressman Pat Ryan is because his participation in a racist vote to censure Rashida Tlaib, to silence her power, to be able to stand up for the people who she's related to who might die by American weapons. No one thinks that a ceasefire right now is going to solve a 75-year-old conflict, but I can say that the matter is very, very simple. I do not support any American weapons being used for war crimes, being used to indiscriminately kill civilians at a rate that is higher than any conflict this century. This is local. This affects everything that we are as Beacon, and I think that we need to stand up and support this resolution. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Okay, there will be a second opportunity for public comment in the back end of the meeting. And let's go on. Let's do reports from the council. You want to start at that end, Molly?
Sure. I want to thank everyone who came out and spoke tonight. And Mayor, I would actually humbly ask that we do discuss whether or not, as a city council, we want to do a resolution. I think one of my colleagues might talk more about that. So I would appreciate us as a council having a discussion of what we want to do, if anything. And I am not saying we should do one thing or another, but I think having that, there are enough of our constituents who voted for us, or voted for at least some of us, that it is worth at least having the discussion. So that is my humble request. In addition to that, I am having office hours, so anyone today who wants to come talk to me and is available Friday, this coming Friday, from 4 to 6 p.m. at Bank Square Coffee House, just across the way next to Pearl Hill Park that Teresa talked about. I will be there, and actually Jeff, too, from Ward 2, will be joining me for the second half of that if you're able to come, or feel free to reach out to me over email if that time does not work for you. I also want to thank the Beacon Fire Department and the local fire departments for the horrific fire that we had on West Church Street on January 26th. They did a great job getting that fire under control, making sure to limit the damage. It didn't affect any other structures, and I really appreciate what our fire department did there and does every day to keep us safe, as a lot of people here have talked about. And I will pass it on to Jeff.
Thank you very much, Molly. Yeah, okay. Yes, I'll be joining you for office hours. Looking forward to that. It's not a requirement that you invite me to all of your office hours in Ward 2, but I do appreciate being able to talk to you afterwards as well. I will be having office hours myself. I did have them at the Recreation Center last couple of weeks ago, and they'll be at the weekend of February 24th. I'm confirming. Don't want to speak out of turn for the library, but it will be at the library. You'll hear me talk a lot about, in the remainder of my time that you allow me to do this, a lot about mental health, and particularly mental health for children. We're living in crazy times with an imbalance in the inputs to which people are exposed these days. And so I particularly will have information that I'd like shared with people so that they know that there are resources to support them in getting help, seeking help, and supporting this effort, because I do think that we are in a crisis about the mental health that's happening with children in particular. And so I want to particularly thank many people in the course of this, but two groups of people I'd like to thank tonight are our school board members, particularly here in Beacon and elsewhere, who are taking the time to take action to do things that are in strong support of our schools and our children. Amazing progress that they're making over there. I'd also like to thank our Conservation Advisory Committee, meeting regularly and tomorrow night, working on issues that I believe need to be addressed. And these issues and this work is so essentially important for giving a sense of support and foundation for children to know that there are adults working on issues that matter of great urgency. And I'd just like one additional statement that, it was mentioned tonight that many politicians make up their minds before they hear people speak. I know that amongst my colleagues that is absolutely not true. This is a deliberative body, and I look forward to the conversations that we'll have. Thank you.
Hey, Amber, 1 second. I just want people to know that the judge has graciously agreed to arraign whatever his arraignment is downstairs, so I think we're okay. I have experienced council meetings where we've had to leave for a few minutes, but I think we're okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thanks. I'm going to continue the theme of office hours, but I'm joining Pam for hers, so I'm going to let Pam make the announcement. I'm all set.
Do you want me to say it right now?
Oh, Paloma, whoever's next. I just didn't want to steal your thunder since you did it's your office hours. but I'm
Should
just
we
waiting.
pause for a second, Chris, just because of the recording? Just confirm.
No, we're fine. Pete's also recording. It's just a space issue on my end.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Did you want to say anything else?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
I will pause then for a second if you want to do your office hours. Great. I wanted to start by saying thank you to everybody who came and spoke tonight. I'm going to save a little bit of a response to the end of my report. I wanted to first say a happy Lunar New Year to anybody who celebrates. It begins this Saturday. That's why I'm wearing red. And also share that the Beacon Spring Celebration of Light, which celebrates the coming of spring, Lunar New Year, light, hope, warmth, and renewal, family and kids, celebrates a lot of things, will be taking place at the end of Lunar New Year, which is February 24th, Saturday, gathering at Pole Hill Park, the much talked about Pole Hill Park, at 5:30 with a parade at 6. Thank you to the city for allowing that parade to happen in the street. It's the much safer option. And concludes with a celebration at the yard. There's a lantern making workshop this coming Sunday, February 11th at the Farmers Market. All of these events are free and open to the public. So I hope you'll join and celebrate all of those things. A few other PSAs. Chris, will you be talking about the investment grant program? Great, I'll skip that. Will you be talking about We Play closing?
You can hit that.
Great. So the We Play Park at Memorial Park, which is co-managed by the city, and the We Play program will be closed for renovations from February 12th to April 12th. If you look up for more information, you're welcome to reach out to Mark Price, our Director of Recreation, but all of the improvements planned, I think, are really exciting and are a long time coming. The electrification event, I think Dan's going to cover, which leaves me with my current thoughts on this topic of a humanitarian ceasefire. I think if you've been listening to council meetings, you know that I have not been quiet about this, and also I very much am interested in a thorough dialogue. I agree with what others have said, that a lasting peace and the Beacon Way is through community conversation, through dialogue, and of course, a prerequisite for that dialogue to happen is a baseline sense of safety. When somebody is being asked to talk about these really difficult topics, there needs to be, built mutual trust and an open space for real dialogue. City Hall is not a place for that. And so I want to offer my support, such as it is, to promote spaces of dialogue like that. I'm very reachable as well, and would be happy to talk to any individuals about how to facilitate that best. What I do see as the role that the city can play is to listen to our constituents, to articulate what we hear them say, and to boost those words further up the chain of government, such as it is. We know that we are not going to solve decades-long international conflict at this table. We're not qualified for that, but that doesn't mean that there isn't space for us to do our due diligence of representing the people of Beacon specifically. So having said that, I do support having a discussion, as Molly said, specifically around a humanitarian ceasefire, with all the humility that I just expressed. And so I hope that the mayor and the rest of council will agree to put it on the agenda, at least for discussion. I'll lastly say that my own office hours are this Sunday, February 11th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at Trax Coffee. Anyone is welcome to come and talk to me. Again, that is more of a space for conversation, but I'm also reachable in other ways. So thank you.
Good evening. Thanks to everyone for coming out and speaking. And I would agree with Jeff. My decision of anything is not made, and sometimes up to the last possible second, I can change my mind based on listening to everyone. As Amber said, we're going to be having our office hours on Sunday, February 18th, 1 to 2:30 p.m. at Trax on Fishkill Avenue. I'm assuming yours is...
Oh, yes. Trax at 2 East Main. Apologies. We have 2 Traxes in Beacon.
Yes. Yeah. And I also wanted to ask, the recreation study that was done, is that something that can be brought up to discuss at council? I guess just to kind of catch up some of the the newer people, the newer council members, and to see the recommendations and what actions we could look at adding to our agenda this year. And then I'm hoping that it's going to be discussed about the county bus route and how it's affecting Beacon, and if it's possible for someone from the county to come to Beacon. I know they had a meeting at 5:30 last Monday that was in person up in Poughkeepsie, which that's really hard for people in Beacon, and that they didn't have a virtual opportunity. I just wanted to say I was honored to be able to give the mayor's proclamation at the funeral of Beulah Jackson, who just an amazing woman, and really the love of her family and friends at that event was just very, very moving, and I was honored. And thank you, Mayor, for a moment of silence for Erica Tomaselli, too. Because of my children, I've known her since I was a child. I wasn't, good friends with her and her mom, but I felt like a huge connection of all that had gone on, so young with 4 young children. And today is actually her mom's birthday. So that family's going through a lot of difficult time right now. So that's all I have to say.
All right. First, a couple upcoming events. Firstly, on February 18th, I'll be having my office hours at Trax from 10 to 12 in the morning. So I always do third Sunday of the month from 10 to 12 at Trax. The following day, on February 19th at 7 p.m. at the Rec Center, there will be another How Do I Electrify event about how to electrify your lifestyle. And this event will be focused on the ins and outs of purchasing or renting an electric vehicle. And so those are 2 events. I also, we received an email with regards to Pocket Road trailhead parking, and I don't think I agree with all of the things in the email. One thing I want to say is when we took up this issue in 2020, I had been at the time I was under the understanding that we were addressing street parking and not the 4 parking spots at the end of the road. The issue that we were trying to address was that people couldn't get out of their driveways backing out on Pocket Road because people were parking along the road. But I always felt that those parking spots that were closer up to the gate were not an obstruction of any kind. And so if we could, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but if we could just have a 10-15 minute conversation about what that law was supposed to be, because when those rocks got placed there in the parking lot, I raised it here and I was told that we had actually approved it, but I don't recall it being that way. I thought we were addressing street parking. And then lastly, and I think those 4 parking spots, if they were reopened, wouldn't have an impact on the community living on Pocket Road, on that neighborhood. So the last thing I just want to say is that I am so deeply appreciative of everybody that's in this room speaking their minds about something that matters so much to all of us and resonates through all of our lives. And while we'll probably have a discussion about this resolution, I think that the thing we can all acknowledge tonight is that Beacon is at its very best when this room is full. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I think, Dan, you said it great, which is I'm very respectful of all the comments here. We do better when people come and speak. A couple of things. One, it's the start of Black History Month. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that that's what February is. In particular, I just want to point out that the Dutchess County Historical Society on February 22nd at 7 p.m. is doing a piece titled Greater Risks and Global Dynamics, New Insights into Local Free Black Communities Before the Civil War. It's led by the Historic Society Executive Director, Bill Jeffway. And I would encourage people to use the month as an opportunity to understand our history better. What I did today was just do a snippet. The first person at the North Pole was more than likely Matthew Henson, not Robert Perry, who worked with Perry for more than 25 years. He was a free black born in 1866 in Maryland. So I just encourage everyone to understand our history better. I just want one comment about January 6th. I'm a parent of 2 children, adult children with disabilities. They struggle to be in public without anxiety. One of them has been perseverating for 3 years on a protest in front of our house and is now perseverating on the events of January 6th. So when I speak of safety, I know very much that it's very personal. And while I'm not particularly concerned with my safety, that doesn't mean that I'm not concerned with the safety of my children, and in particular of people with disabilities who may have other feelings and other ways to interpret events. The other thing I wish to point out is I more than once said in my comments that I call to work together to figure out how we can both preserve free speech and make sure that everyone feels comfortable. I haven't heard anyone suggest that we should do that, but I'll reiterate it again. I also want to point out my personal background. My family is from the island of Cyprus. Cyprus is 40 miles from Turkey, 75 miles from Lebanon, about 110 miles to Haifa in Israel, about 200 plus miles to Gaza. My father was in a village with no electricity, no running water. He attended high school because he had to leave the village because he was the only kid to be able to do that. My mother was in a much bigger town that had electricity. She too attended high school because she had to leave the town and go to the bigger town. My family comes from a place where probably none of you is aware. A third of the island is occupied by 40,000 Turkish troops. It has been that way for 40 to 50 years. Most recently in the news in the past week, in response to Turkey allowing Sweden to join NATO, the United States is proposing to sell F-16 fighter jets to Turkey in contravention of our own resolutions with respect to arms to Turkey until they do something about the Cyprus situation. I'm not seeing anybody talk about the third of the Greek population who were made refugees by the ethnic cleansing that occurred on the island in 1974, nor of the 50,000 Turkish Cypriots who were similarly left, although with the protection of thousands of Turkish troops. Right? I don't quite find the situation in Israel anything other than extremely complicated. I'll give you a single example. The island of Cyprus has been working, the Republic of Cyprus, which is the official government of Cyprus, which only controls the 2/3 that the Turkish army does not occupy, has been working on opening a humanitarian corridor for ships to Gaza. That would allow huge volume of supplies to pass through, and has been working with Israel to do that. It has good relations with Israel and also the Palestinians. It recognizes multiple UN resolutions. It also has sovereign British bases that occupy about 5% of the island. It is not part of Cyprus, but rather is part of Britain and is used to supply Israel. So, it is not a straightforward situation. I am well aware of how difficult the Middle East is for multiple ethnic groups and multiple communities. I pray for peace. And that's all I got. Okay.
City administrator?
Oh, does the city administrator have anything to say?
No, I'm just going to talk about local stuff.
Oh,
Sorry,
geez,
that's
yeah.
off the agenda.
Okay.
I just want to thank the We Play Community Project for their significant donation to the upgrade of the We Play Tot Park, which is closing next week and going to be closed for a period of 2 months to replace the fencing, all of the play units, the surfacing. So we're about to bid that project. We're also about to bid, we're waiting for a final approval to bid the long-awaited reconstruction of Teller Avenue and Fishkill Avenue, which is about a $8.8 million project. And this week we are bidding the West Main Pump Station and Force Main that I think was first approved when Amber was on the council the first time.
So is Teller Avenue, so that one's been long awaited.
Yeah, so we have a lot of work coming up.
She'll be happy.
I also do want to announce that today we opened applications for the Community Investment Grant Program. This is a $20,000 allocation that the City Council has made in the last 3 budgets to help nonprofits that serve the City of Beacon. So if you're a nonprofit or you're a community organization that has a nonprofit fiscal sponsor, you can submit an application. The applications are due on March 11th. And if you go to the city's website, beaconny.gov, it's right at the top of our announcements. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. There's 3 resolutions on the agenda. Let's pick them up. The first one is to set a public hearing. So this is for a proposed local law that would clarify the grievance day for complaints regarding tax assessments. So can I get a motion and a second to set a public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
So that's Dan and Molly. Nick, you want to tell us, I know we're setting a public hearing and you can tell us the date, but exactly what's the change so people can understand it, all right?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this is a local law that will be part of a public hearing to change the date of that's set forth in the city code for the hearing of grievances for one's tax assessments. The City of Beacon has a shared tax assessor. New York State Real Property Tax Law provides that when there's a shared assessor, that one of the communities can elect to have their grievance day moved to a different day. That day cannot precede the 4th Tuesday of the month. The current existing Beacon local law says that the grievance day in Beacon will be held on the 4th Wednesday. However, there was an oddity this year, perhaps due to leap year. There are 5 Wednesdays in the month, so the 4th Wednesday precedes the 4th Tuesday, and that is not permitted under the law. So we have provided for a modification reflecting that the Wednesday immediately following the 4th Tuesday in May will be the grievance day in the City of Beacon. And so that local law is scheduled for a public hearing to be heard on Tuesday, February 20th at 7 p.m. at City Hall.
Thank you. Council, any discussion?
I believe, I know I wasn't here last week, and so missed the full discussion. The one question that I had in terms of making sure people are aware that grievance day is not the only time that they can ask questions about their assessments. I believe we talked about including in the letter that's sent out about assessments, information about all of the ways that they can reach out to our assessor. Is that still the plan?
Yes, and we are also lining up to have our assessor, Kathy Martin, and our attorney, Judd Siebert, come on the workshop for the 29th of April, so that right before letters go out, we can do the same presentation that we did last year to explain the process, explain grievances, understand that, you know, that the increase in appraised value doesn't necessarily equate into what your taxes go up. So they will be back before the letters go out as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. I think the primary effect is to ensure that the 4th Wednesday doesn't occur before the 4th Tuesday, if
Right.
I remember. Is that correct, Nick?
That's correct.
Okay. And for those who get tax bills, the PAX bill just went out in the last week, and if I recall correctly, that most residential properties saw an assessment increase of 10%. And if you do the calculation on your tax bill, you'll discover that your tax increase is a much smaller number, right? Which is a function of how much the city raises taxes, not how much your assessment changes. And I'll probably do another video for the city when it comes time for assessments to come out. All right?
Mayor, could it be mentioned that the tax bills, there was an issue
Oh,
with
yeah.
the mailing?
That's a good point. Can you describe that, Chris?
Sure. We received the tax bills pre-printed by the county. They had put them in envelopes, and we have some that we process and then some that just come in envelopes and are sent out. When they were mailed out, we quickly realized that they had sent duplicates for the tax bills that are supposed to go to mortgage holders. So if you have an escrow on your account, typically you don't receive a copy, it goes to the bank. So it did cause some confusion. We got the word out pretty quickly, and generally it's good to confirm that your bank is paying that, but getting a second bill this year shouldn't indicate that they didn't get the first bill.
All right, so if you have a mortgage and your mortgage company pays the taxes, that's through what's called an escrow, and you get a tax bill, you can ignore the tax bill, right? If your mortgage company or bank ordinarily pays those taxes on your behalf, don't worry about it. Okay?
We have a motion on the table about Resolution 1, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I just want to come back.
Did you get
Everybody good?
Did you get a first and a second on that motion?
I did.
Yes, that was
Right?
Dan and me,
Yeah.
yes.
Great.
All good.
All right,
It's a while
so
ago.
Dan is pointing out that we should come back to resolution number 23. All in favor of setting the public hearing for this change of grievance day for tax assessments to set the public hearing for what date? Nick?
The 20th of February.
The 20th of February. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, the second one is a resolution to appoint Jeff Crawford to the Conservation Advisory Committee. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So that was Amber and Dan. Ben, do you want to tell us something about Jeffrey or not?
I will just reiterate a few things from our last discussion on this topic. He has a strong background in working in sustainability, sustainable development, and he comes endorsed by the chair of the CAC and has attended a previous meeting of the CAC as well.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor of appointing Jeffrey Crawford to the Conservation Advisory Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. And then the third one is a tax certiorari settlement. So can I get a motion and a second to approve that settlement with 30 Beacon LLC?
Motion?
Second.
All right, so that was Molly and Amber. And Nick, you'll tell us a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is settling a tax grievance or tax cert that's gone to the Supreme Court in Dutchess County regarding the View condominiums located at 30 Beekman Street. These are a challenge to the assessment for 7 of the units on the top floor. That has been reviewed by the assessor, conference with the court in our office, and a resolution reached whereby the assessment would be reduced to what the assessor believes is an appropriate resolution and a reduction in the fair market value assessment that results in a cumulative refund for all 7 units of approximately $15,500.
Any questions from the council or discussion?
Is there a broader implication of this ruling for other properties? I mean, does this indicate any kind of model or template?
Generally not. I mean, Nick, unless you'd add something
No,
else. It's individual
it doesn't.
settlements.
Each one is unique on its own facts. It's based upon its assessed value. It's the assessor's opinion of its fair market value. Factors that go into it, the square footage size. These were penthouse units, so that's why all of these are being treated similarly. But it's not a true presidential value.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of approving this settlement, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 22nd.
Motion?
Molly.
Second.
And Paloma. Any changes, corrections, additions, deletions?
I have none.
Any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I just want to announce our next meeting will be on February 13th. That will be a
Tuesday.
workshop. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a Tuesday, right? Because the Monday is
Lincoln's
Lincoln's
city
birthday,
holiday.
which is a municipal holiday. So it'll be on Tuesday, February 13th at 7 p.m. That will be a workshop meeting. And then we're now at our second opportunity for public comment. If you did not speak at the first opportunity for public comment, would like to speak now, this is your opportunity to do so. Sure, come on up.
Please speak up to Naima Akbar, Christie
Wait
Drive.
to talk into the mic, that's right.
Okay. Hi, Naima Akbar, Christie Drive. And this is in regards to the resolution. We hear so many people talk about peace. They want the fighting to stop on either side. And it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. But let's talk about being human beings and want the best for all. It's not a black thing, it's not a Muslim thing, it's not a Christian thing, it's not a Jew thing. It's a right thing. And the right thing is for all of you to join together and say enough is enough. We want the fighting to stop. When you say you want peace and you discuss the importance of peace, means you want the killing to stop. That means you will do everything you can to be an advocate for the bloodshed to stop. Too many people have kept quiet on what is right. You have a chance to do what's right. That means you should pass the resolution of a ceasefire. I don't know how anyone would want the fighting to continue and still be able to sleep at night while you're hugging your babies and hugging your children and hugging your nieces and nephews. Mothers are watching their babies dying. Mothers and fathers are burying their children. Mothers and fathers and family members are just don't even have a place to put their dead ones. I don't know how people sleep at night. Thank you. Pass the resolution.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else in the public. Is there anyone online that didn't speak the first time? All right, come on up.
And you don't have anybody online.
Okay, sure. Let us know who you are, where you live.
Sure.
Welcome.
Hi. My name is Lena Riscala. I live in Beacon. I moved here about 6 years ago. I just wanted to take a quick second to explain why I think that we should support this resolution for a ceasefire. Based on my experience living here in Beacon, I moved here 6 years ago from the city. I was there for 20 years wanting peace and quiet and affordability at the time. And I found that plus more. I found a great community. I built a business here, opened a business 4 years ago. I'm a financial advisor. And just based on kind of coming to this town, the very first time I came here in October 2018, I mean, it was a beautiful fall day. We all know what fall is in the Hudson Valley. It's very seductive. It's like Beacon was wearing a tube top. But I walked down the street and there was like the American flags, there was Main Street. And then I saw things a little bit closer. I walked by Zaytoun, a Palestinian restaurant, and in front of it was a placard that said, "Live, Laugh, Hummus," and authentic Palestinian restaurant. And I was floored because I didn't expect that I would find that here. I knew what I would find, but I didn't expect that there would be a Palestinian restaurant. I am Palestinian American, and I'm very excited to have Palestinian food here, but also that it would call itself Palestinian, because all my life, if you want Palestinian food, you go to a Middle Eastern restaurant or a Lebanese restaurant. And in this place, in this community, the community embraced this restaurant, this Palestinian restaurant. I kept walking in the middle of Main Street, there was a mosque. I'm a Christian, I'm a Palestinian Christian, but I was excited that there was, in the middle of this beautiful American town with American flags flapping in the wind, a mosque where everyone can hear the call to prayer. And I thought, wow, what an inclusive community, what a diverse and rich community, and it made me more and more excited to spend my money to live here and pay taxes. I have no children, I pay taxes so that all of Beacon's children can go to school, and I'm proud to. I am so excited to. And besides that, you talk to people, the Albanian families that own the Italian restaurants, and the Yemeni families that own Key Food, and we have the best Sri Lankan food on the East Coast because of Red Pepper Diner. So in addition to that, I know that since I've moved here, made friends, built my community here, and my clients, I could see that there's so much diversity and richness that is 100% embraced in this town, and I'm so excited to be here. But when you see what's happening in Gaza, it's not just the genocide and all the things that we've been saying that's been happening, it's the community of Gaza that's being destroyed. Now you can look at pictures and you can see the entire place, it's demolished. I don't think that we can say, oh, they're looking for Hamas and hostages there. I really doubt that. What we can see is the complete destruction of a community, of the spine of it. 130 journalists have been killed. What's that?
Oh, we got 15 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Journalists have been killed. Doctors, scientists, lawyers, educators, poets, writers, families, children have been orphaned. And that is that is the reason why we need to pass this resolution, because Beacon is a community that loves its richness and diversity, and we have to support something that's going to stop this madness and this crazy injustice that's happening to the community in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ben, I'm told is there anyone online?
No hands raised online.
Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? Second?
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you all and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Nick.